Magical Sunday School is in session. Get yourself comfortable because we're going to talk about fun stuff today. We're going to talk about Galatia. Now, over the last couple of days, we talked about the astrological attributes of the small cards. Here's a card that would represent the period of time we're in right now. 0 degrees to 10 degrees Pisces, February 19th through the 28th. And we found out that it's assigned, that decan is assigned the planet Saturn, so it'd be Saturn in Pisces. In case we forget or don't want to read those things, it's right under the title of the card. And we talked a little bit about these angels of Kabbalistic angels of the Shemhamferish yesterday. Now today we're getting to the information about the Goetic spirits, or if you prefer, Goetic spirits. There's Furfur, and there's Seer. So, we are reading, still continuing to read the chapter 5, and we've just got to the section of the 72 spirits of the Goetia. Now I'm going to do something a little different today. I'm going to start reading this chapter, but then I'm going to turn our attention to Appendix 4, which contains the information on Goetic evocation, and to tell you the truth, everything you need to know to actually prepare and perform a Goetic evocation. I keep telling you, the appendices of this book are what make it a desert island book for me. There's all the Enochian information, all the Goetic information, the astrological information. So anyway, that being said, Sunday school should be fun today. The 72 spirits of the Goetia. Along with the Enochian information, the inclusion of the 72 spirits of the Goetia on the 36 small cards is perhaps the most significant feature of the Tarot of Ceremonial Magic. Never before have the correct attributions of these spirits been incorporated into a deck of tarot cards. This information has been drawn from Aleister Crowley's Kabbalistic masterpiece 777, columns 155 through 166. Goetic evocation is one of the most popular and widely practiced forms of ceremonial magic. Now, we're going to stop there, and we're going to turn our attention to Appendix number 4. The trappings of Goetic evocation resemble a Christopher Lee Gothic horror film. The magician stands inside a magical circle, protected by the names of God, archangels, angels, and other Kabbalistic words of power. By a combination of powerful yet eloquent exorcisms and terrifyingly incomprehensible barbarous words of evocation, the magician calls forth a demon from the pits of hell and traps it in a magical triangle. There it reluctantly waits to hear its master's instructions. Then, as usually the case in horror films, the magician, because of some tragic character flaw or unresolved issue stemming from his childhood in a dysfunctional family, loses his grip on the demon and is plunged to hell after being killed in a most unspeakably grotesque yet poetically fitting manner. While it's true that goetic evocations are sometimes accompanied by strange, sometimes unexplainable phenomena, in nearly 20 years of practice, and now I can probably have nearly 40 years of practice, I've yet to encounter anything resembling the above colorful scenario. I do recognize, to the filmmaker's credit, the basic elements of this form of magic. Yes, the magician stands inside a magical circle upon which are divine names. Yes, the spirit is called forth by conjurations and strange words and is trapped in the triangle. Yes, the spirit is of the infernal variety, at least in the mind of the magician, and can be very dangerous if not controlled. The obvious question becomes at this point, why on earth would anybody in their right mind involve themselves in such an enterprise? For those who have not been irreparably damaged by simplistic and paranoid religious programming, the answer lies in the understanding of the term infernal spirit. How many of us can truthfully say that we've never allowed greed or jealousy or insecurity or lust or laziness to ruin a potential triumph? How many times have you said to yourself, I'm my own worst enemy? Couldn't these bad habits and character flaws be viewed as nasty little imps who pop up at the worst possible time and torpedo even the best laid plans? Wouldn't we just love to master them and force them to work for our benefit instead of our undoing? Certainly, from one perspective, hell is our own psyche, and the infernal spirits can be considered portions of the unconscious mind, or aspects of our emotional life. Up until the moment of evocation, these demons remain uncontrolled and undirected. The various spirits of classical magical literature are convenient and, some say, uncannily accurate personifications of these various potential powers. What makes them dangerous is the fact that unless they're called forth and forced to labor in harmony with the magician's will, they'll continue to run amok and work their mischief. The 72 spirits of the Galatia are drawn from one of the best-known grimoires of all time, the Lesser Key of Solomon, the first book of the Lemegeton. And that'd be Sloan manuscripts number 27, or 2731 and 3648, currently housed in the British Library. Papers date to about 1697 and appear to be one collector's attempt to have his favorite texts of Solomonic magic bound into a single volume. It's like a sampler. The greatest hits, one personal magician's greatest texts. They bear evidence that their language has been modernized and that they were transcribed from far older volumes, and how old we don't know. Several of the spirits appear to be degenerated versions of gods of the ancients. For example, Baal, Ashtaroth, Astarte, and Belial, while others appear to be genii of the elf Layla wa Layla, 1001 Arabian Nights. Yes, 1001 Arabian Nights is a real magical grimoire. Those who in the past translated, copied, and recopied the various texts of the Lemegeton were obviously not sympathetic to the pagan theology represented by the spirits, and so we can never be sure what the original attributes of the spirits actually were. The mere fact that they've come down to us as fallen angels of the classic Miltonian ilk is suspect in itself. Even more striking is the sex-negative attitude displayed by the fact that all the spirits are male, including the dukes Ashtaroth, which is obviously the goddess Astarte, and Gremory, who appears as a beautiful woman, and Vepar, who appears as a mermaid. There are those whose opinions I respect very much, who maintain that the spirits of the Galatia have an objective existence and can and do operate independently of the magician's will. There are others who aver that they are entirely subjective and have no existence outside the magician's mind. Aleister Crowley went so far in his introduction to the Galatia to say that the spirits are portions of the human brain, which, if properly isolated and disciplined, can be of great aid to the magician. But elsewhere in his writings, it appears he takes an entirely different attitude. Whatever the true nature of the spirits may be, it's obvious to anyone who has been bold or reckless enough to perform a Goetic evocation that things happen. It seems obvious that part of what makes the magic of evocation work is the magician's acceptance, at least temporarily, that the spirit's existence is objective. Goetic magicians fall into two broad categories: those that strive as far as humanly possible to replicate what they believe to be the original modus operandi, and those who don't. Neither, in my opinion, is necessarily superior to the other. It all depends upon the individual magician. If your religious conviction or sense of art is such that you feel that the evocation is doomed to failure if you do not have every word of every conjuration, constraint, or curse duly memorized as it appears in the 1687 Sloane manuscript, if you believe that you'll be blasted, torn apart, and have your soul eaten by a hideous halitosis snorting monster if one Hebrew word in your magical circle is misspelled, hey, then it's absolutely essential that you take the time to meticulously do all those things correctly. On the other hand, if you feel confident that there's a simple formula of attitude and action that is the key to a successful evocation, and that as long as the basic elements of that formula are mastered, the operation will be a success, then it'd be a wasted time to memorize conjurations that are meaningless to you or guard your circle with names of gods you do not worship. It is probably clear to the reader that I fall into the latter category. Space prohibits me to adequately elucidate much further upon either traditional or heretical Galatia. The best I can do is offer a brief outline of the system and refer you to two texts that I feel best represent The Two Schools of Thought. The first book, first, the books. The Galatia and Aleister Crowley's Illustrated Galatia by Lon Milo DuQuette and Christopher Hyatt. The former is a faithful reproduction of the first book of the Lemegeton. That's Aleister Crowley's Galatia, published by Weiser. Get it. It's thin enough. You'll use it forever, truly. And the second book, or the first, is the faithful reproduction of the Lemegeton, which is translated by S.L. MacGregor Mathers and introduced by Aleister Crowley. The text contains all the various conjurations and constraints, plus the seals and attributes of the spirits, and many details relevant to classic evocation. Anyone who seriously wants to embark upon Goetic evocation must be profoundly familiar with this text. The latter, which is, I mentioned Aleister Crowley's Illustrated Galatia, is an attempt by Dr. Hyatt and myself to point out the psychological treasures in Goetic evocation and give examples of modern innovations of the system. We've included selected classical conjurations and, of course, their seals and attributes of all the spirits, which are also included in this book. This text also includes the 72 illustrations by artist and Goetic magician David P. Wilson. Our Monday night class alumnus. Even if I were not co-author of this text, I would recommend it to any student of Galatia. And, you know, I don't know why I haven't popped this up before. It's published by two publishers, New Falcon and Original Falcon, both fine publishers and both my publishers, so don't feel you have to do one or the other. Okay, that is about as much time as we're going to do today. Tomorrow we're going to return to the main part of the text concerning the small cards and the spirits of the Galatia. And until then, I hope you've enjoyed this little essay on Galatia, and will be with us tomorrow to start our week off. Sunday school's dismissed. Continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Go out and do what thou wilt. Shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.